Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about two of the most dominant guns within Warzone currently, and that is the FFAR and the Mac-10. We're going to explain a little bit of why they're so popular. I'm going to be giving you various different builds because there is a ton of variety with these builds because it comes down to your playstyle and individual preferences. So we're going to go ahead and talk through all that. We're going to talk about how you integrate the Agency Suppressor silencer into your loadout with them fixing it and buffing it for SMGs. If you enjoyed the video, learned something new, please do me a favor, hit that like button. If you're brand new, want to find your way back, just double check, make sure you subscribe. 57% of you guys have not hit the subscribe button, but are currently watching. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button so you'll be able to find your way back to the channel. So there is a couple different things that happen. Obviously, I've done a couple videos that I kind of went pretty in depth for the FFAR and the Mac-10 within the past week. That was the assumption that we're not going to use the agency silencer or suppressor because it was totally destroying the weapons, nerfing your range, bullet velocity, and it just wasn't all around good. It just kept you off the minimap, but no really plus side besides that. As a result of integrating that into the class setup, it kind of changes things up a bit, and we're going to have to adjust the loadout depending on your own individual preferences. But at the end of today's video, you should have a good idea on what you want to use on your individual loadout. So what I'm going to do is put up on screen just to talk a little bit about the bullet velocity. You can see for the FFAR, the base bullet velocity sits right around 600. With that agency suppressor, which I just have it as AS in there, it's up to almost 800 bullet velocity, and you can see that's a 30% increase. With the AS and the reinforced heavy, we're getting close to 1,000. Over almost 1,200 with the Ranger, which is only bullet velocity. Then we have the takedown task force sit right around 950, 930, somewhere in that. You can see that on screen. And those are insane numbers that allow you to get tons of options when it comes to choosing a barrel. We'll talk a little bit about that once we get into the individual class setups of why you would use both. On top of that, the Mac-10 kind of has a similar thing where it didn't get bullet velocity before. In case you guys don't remember what happened in Season 1, pretty much you'd equip the suppressor and you get additional 10% range, which for a gun like that, you only get about 15.5 meters. That would bump you up to around 17. And that's kind of what we're getting in this case. But on top of that, they also allowed it to have additional 30% bullet velocity, which can allow your bullets to connect that much easier and allow you to make a better decision that fits your needs for the individual barrel. Keeping in mind that it'll never be as broken as it was in Season 1. Obviously, the gallantry blueprint was broken, but on top of that, even once they fixed that, the task force barrel was completely and utterly broken for all SMGs, and they've gone and corrected that. But it doesn't mean it's a bad weapon. It's still a very, very good weapon. And the reason you're seeing so many people use these weapons is because the TTKs are good or the mobility is insane. That's kind of really what it comes down to. And normally what you're looking for when it comes to an SMG is a bullet velocity somewhere around 500, and you can see that's accomplished very easily by combining the suppressor and a barrel. I know some people are very tied to their suppressor and they felt kind of lost without a suppressor that was very usable. This thing is definitely usable, keeping in mind that it will slow down your aim down sight time by about 10%, and there's not really a way to improve it. So keep in mind, it will be a little bit slower at aiming, but it's still going to keep you off the minimap, giving you 30% bullet velocity and 10% range for pretty much both of these weapons. The FFAR has one of the fastest TTKs in the game, only beat out really by the AS Val, which isn't even all that practical because as fast as TTK is in that first damage drop off, then after that it's nothing spectacular and it has a very tiny mag. FFAR does not deal with that. It has one damage drop off right around 36 meters. Obviously, you can buff it with different attachments. With this one, you're going to get the additional 3 meters. And after it has that first drop off, its TTK is still 600 milliseconds, which is insanely fast. Mac-10 is a little bit more, it doesn't have quite as an insane TTK, right, a little bit over 500 with that open bolt delay. But the big thing with this one is it has some insane movement and mobility. You're able to get from point A to point B significantly faster. Your overall movement, getting in and out of gunfights, and how you position yourself, significantly more fluid with the Mac-10. Obviously, in the SMG category, it has faster aim down sight speed. It gives you that feel of movement that the FFAR can get pretty close to, especially when you stack it the right way. But Mac-10 is still an SMG, so it really comes down to preference. Personally, I think the FFAR is completely broken. It'll probably get nerfed Mac-10 is very good, but I don't think it's at the point where they're going to actually nerf it. So just keep that in mind when we're building these loadouts. So one thing we'll talk about is the difference in recoil and how that's going to impact attachments before we jump into the class setup. So we'll go ahead and do that now. So one thing that we saw with the FFAR before we were using the Agency silencer is that it actually performed better with the SFOD speed grip at reducing that recoil without having any muzzle. And that was shown in the previous video. You can go ahead and check out. All that stuff still holds true if you're not going to be running a suppressor, but obviously given the fact that you're going to run a suppressor, I wanted to see what those differences were. You can see how the Agency Suppressor Dyna does its thing here with this little blue box, and then we have the orange one here. It looks like the foregrip is helping out. And then we have the Field Agent grip, which looks like it's probably going to be the best option, and then the SFOD speed grip. So when it comes to the FFAR, I think if you're going to use this Agency Suppressor, it's best to combine it with the Field Agent grip. If you're not going to, then you might want to go ahead and stick with the SFOD speed grip, because it doesn't look like the SFOD speed grip is working quite as well with the Agency Suppressor. So you kind of got to understand how you're going to use the weapon, what attachments you're committing to, because there is a difference. Obviously, Agency Suppressor is going to have a little bit slower aim down sight time by 10%, depending on the weapon. That could be a huge difference or negligible, and you don't really care. So you got to go ahead and factor that in. It can free up attachment. Maybe you get a laser sight on there. There's some variety there, depending on which you want to go with. And the same thing holds true when we go over to the Mac-10. So the same thing with the Mac-10, you can see the similar trend here. You got the little recoil pattern. I took a couple so you can have them side by side, and I put the thing in the middle. And you can see the Field Agent grip combined with that Agency Suppressor is doing the best horizontal and vertical, pretty close. Obviously, the speed grip looks like it's helping a little bit more vertical, but overall, looking at that recoil pattern, I think this is a super easy recoil pattern control. So if you're going to be using the Mac-10 with an Agency Suppressor, the best grip is going to be the Field Agent grip. So this is kind of a little bit different than what we were seeing without that specific barrel, or you're going to combine it with, you know, a different muzzle. This one, if you're 100% all in, I'm not using anything but an Agency Suppressor, this kind of gives you the better idea on what you should be using here. Now it's going to get incredibly different when it jumps into the barrels, because now we get free pick on what makes the most sense for our individual playstyle and how we're going to go ahead and pair this weapon. We're going to go ahead and make some assumptions here with the class setup for the FFAR. We're going to go ahead and go with the Agency Suppressor. We're going to go with the Field Agent grip as well as the biggest mag. So those things are a given, and then pretty much everything beyond this point comes down to complete preference. These are the ones I would recommend for this build. Obviously, we had the other build without this, where you don't have a muzzle at all, and then you use the SFOD speed grip, and then you're using the reinforced heavy, and then pretty much that's that build, and then you get one free attachment. So you get a little bit of variety with these different options. Obviously, I covered all those in the previous video, so if you really want to know what a class setup looks like without the suppressor, I would check that one out. So pretty much we got here, this is our base starting point. And then there's pretty much 3 different options on here. Most people will probably go with this CQB pad, which is pretty much like no stock on Mac-10 or a lot of other weapons. Then we have the combat stock and the Raider stock. Pretty much the Raider stock is faster, and it gives you a faster sprint to fire speed on rifles. When it comes to SMGs, it's the opposite. I don't know why that is, it just is. So pretty much you got that there. And then now if you want to run a barrel, you don't have to run a barrel. You could pretty much run a laser, 5 milliwatts, not visible, will slow down your aim down sight time, steady aim, not visible, and will actually improve your hip fire to kind of counteract Raider. Or you can actually go with the reinforced heavy, which increases your range and bullet velocity to the amount that we saw there. The Ranger, which is only bullet velocity, and that one's going to be insane. It's going to feel very much like hit scan at most ranges. Obviously, once you get it beyond a certain distance that you probably wouldn't even hit bullets with this, then it's not really important, but that's kind of how it goes there. And then the takedown, it gives you that good bullet velocity that these ones are, not any range, but it's going to help with that strafe speed. So it's going to stack onto that Raider stock. So this is the class setup that I prefer. Like I said, I've given you the options. You kind of figure out what works for you, but this is why I like this one, because I get enough bullet velocity. I still have the damage drop off around 39 meters because of the extra 10% from the Agency. And then that's what I would rock. I still get good mobility. And this is what I would use primarily as a rifle support, sniper support, because this is going to be my short to medium, and I could probably combine this with the AUG, Car 98. I'm not really going to use this for super long range, even though I could because the bullet velocity is still going to be very competitive. Now, when it comes to this one, like I said, I've already covered it without the Agency Suppressor, but with the Agency Suppressor, we're going to go ahead and go that route. We're going to go ahead and put the 50 round drum mag. It has a better ADS speed than the last one, and the reload speed is almost identical, despite it saying it has a faster reload speed. So pretty straightforward there. Then you build it out from there. I generally, like I said, I'll go with the combat stock. Raider stock is a little bit slower in this case, but it does improve the sprint to fire, which kind of helps to counteract the open bolt delay a little bit. Or you can go with no stock. Either way, all three of these options will hurt your hip fire. So keep in mind when you're fighting that you can't really rely on the hip fire, because it's not going to really work in your favor the vast majority of the time, unless you're barrel stuffing. Then for the barrel, I would end up going with the Cavalry Lancer. It only is going to help your effective damage range, but it is the best at helping your effective damage range to kind of add on to that 10% that we're getting with the Agency Suppressor. It's not going to help with bullet velocity, but the 30% we're getting from the Agency kind of makes up for that. It's almost like these ones all got a 30% bullet velocity buff that we did not have in Season 1. So that kind of allows me to push towards the Cavalry Lancer. My second close choice would be probably the Reinforced Heavy. After that, I don't think you really need that much bullet velocity, because your engagements really shouldn't be that far. The damage drop-off ends up being pretty bad after about 20-25 meters. The TTK, you're not going to have a lot of bullets. Even though it has 53, it burns through ammo because it has 1100 fire rate. Rifle, not really necessary. I don't think it just doesn't help as much. Task Force got nerfed into the dirt. Adds recoil, not really worth it. So these are the two that I would probably go with, just because of that bullet velocity buff to the Agency Silencer. If you enjoyed the video, learned something new, please do me a favor, hit that like button. I am going to be doing a top 10 loadouts for Season 2, so if you're interested in checking that out, definitely make sure you are subscribed with notifications on, since that should be in the next day or two. Appreciate all the support on the channel. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.